We're live now. We can go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening to everyone in India, and good morning and good afternoon to guests joining us today from the US and Europe. My name is Dr. Mugdha Lele, and I'm a member of the incubation and mentoring team at Venture Center, where I particularly work with science-based deep tech startups with a potential for considerable social impact. I shall be your host for today's event. On behalf of Venture Center, I extend a warm welcome to all the dignitaries, distinguished speakers, and everyone gathered here today to grace the curtain raiser event for AIM Prime program. The AIM Prime program is an initiative of Atal Innovation Mission in partnership with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation and implemented by Venture Center. The program is aimed at providing new energy and focus on the science-based deep tech startups in the country, starting with a focus on AIM-supported institutions. This initiative has been catalyzed by the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India and Pune Knowledge Cluster. PRIME. PRIME is an acronym for Program for Researchers on Innovation and Entrepreneurship and is blended learning and mentoring program designed and implemented by Venture Center Pune. This program combines global insights and best practices, hands-on tools, one-to-one mentoring, and peer-to-peer learning, directly relevant exercises and projects, and content libraries, along with India-specific information and insights from Venture Center's own 14-year experience nurturing science-based deep tech startups in India. This curtain raiser is an official kickoff event for the AIM Prime program. I would like to take this opportunity to give a quick introduction to Venture Center. Venture Center is India's leading inventive enterprises and science-based deep tech business incubator. We are based in Pune and hosted by CSIR National Chemical Laboratory. The center in its last 14 years of existence has supported more than 550 startups and entrepreneurs that are knowledge intensive and work with IP-driven business ideas. The Venture Center works closely with the Office of PSA, DST, NSTDB, BIRAC, DSIR, and so on to contribute to several national missions. The center hosts more than 65 to 75 startups as resident incubators at any given point of time. The Venture Center has received several national and international recognitions like the National Award for Incubators in 2015, Asian Association of Business Incubations Incubator of the Year in 2018, and National Entrepreneurship Award in 2019. Venture Center supported startups are developing solutions for some of the most pressing problems of the society, many of which are first of its kind in India. Here is what is lined up in the event today. We will start with some welcome remarks by Dr. Premnath, Director of Venture Center. Then we will proceed to invite Mr. R. Ramanan, Mission Director, Atal Innovation Mission NITI Aayog, to kindly launch the AIM Prime website and declare the program call and also deliver his keynote address. Following this, Dr. Premnath will give a quick overview of the AIM Prime program. This will be followed by comments from Dr. Ayesha Chaudhary, who represents the Office of PSA, Isha Agarwal, Program Director AIM, and Anjani Bansal, Deputy Global Director Bmgf. We will then request Dr. Ashley Stevens, President of Focus IP Group Boston and ex-President Autumn, to deliver a special talk planned for this occasion and share his rich experiences and insights on building high-tech clusters and technology commercialization capabilities. Following Dr. Ashley's talk, we shall move to take some questions and then close this event. Thanks to Mr. R. Ramanan and Dr. Ashley Stevens for kindly taking out time to participate in this event. A few administrative announcements. We request all participants other than the speakers to stay on mute at all times. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to type in the question and answers box so that we can.
I'm sorry, I think, did we lose Mukta out there, please?
Yes, we
Okay,
did.
so let's continue. Nonetheless, I think I'll take it off from there. She can join us in good time. So we'll be, of course, at some point during the session, we will request you for a quick photo shoot and request all of you to put on your videos, so be ready. And of course, we'll be putting out a short link for you to give some feedback. With that, actually, we can get started right away. I hope Mukta is able to join us. I think I'll go first. I will start by first just giving you a few remarks. My name is Premnath. I'm the founding director of Venture Center and a chief scientist and head NCL Innovations at CSIR NCL. Just as a quick introduction, I'm actually a technologist by training and an innovation manager, startup mentor, and a co-founder of two medtech startups. My interest in technology development and commercialization began with some work which I did with some breakthrough materials for hip and knee replacements that were invented several years back and today are implanted in a million patients, more than a million patients worldwide. It's that experience that excites me to share with you also some of the learnings we have had in developing a culture of building science-based startups with considerable impact. Um, and let's begin on that note. Today, we are here to launch the AIM Prime program, and I'm very delighted that Mr. Ramanan has kindly agreed to do this. Today is actually a very very busy day in India, and we are at the close of the day. As Mr. Ramanan pointed out, it is extremely these are. I'm very delighted that he has thought it important to take out time to launch this particular program today. I will have an opportunity to talk more about it, so let me not spend too much time. With that said, let me today first just request um, 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 uh, uh, that we begin by first opening and launching the AIM Prime program at the hands of Mr. Ramanan. Mr. Ramanan, can I request you to kindly announce that you declare the AIM Prime website launched, and we will launch this site right away.
Thank you, Mr. Premnath, and it is my pleasure and privilege to declare that the AIM Prime program has been launched as of now with the clicking of this button.
Yes, thank you very much. This is the website of the AIM Prime program. It lists all the details about the program. As you can see, my colleague Anmol is scrolling through the website. Lists out the details of the schedule, the speakers, the eligibility, the experts who will be guiding us through this program, and many other pieces of information that all the people interested in this program would like to know. We will get a chance to talk more about it, and I'll give you an overview. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramanan, for declaring it open. With the launch of the website, the call for this program also stands open. The website has an online form for interested participants. Website is www.primeprogram.in. Before I invite Mr. Ramanan to kindly deliver the keynote address, let me give you a brief introduction to Mr. Ramanan. Shri Ramanan is the mission director of the Atal Innovation Mission, a very visible face in India. Atal Innovation Mission is part of the NITI Aayog, which is the National Institution for Transforming India, Government of India. Under his dynamic leadership, AIM has laid out and implemented a comprehensive and holistic national inclusive innovation initiative, which is covering about 10,000 plus Atal tinkering labs for school children, serving all districts of India and over 2 million school children. 102 Atal incubation centers for startups established in partnerships with universities and industries, and 24 Atal New India challenges to stimulate product innovation along with ministries of India, and one of the largest mentorship networks, AIM InnoNet, in the world, with over 10,000 registrations nationwide to mentor young school students and startups. He's recently, of course, been honored with several awards, one of them being the Mint SAP Digitalist Award recently. But of course, there are many more. As many of you know, Sri Ramanan is on deputation from TCS. Sri Ramanan is a Senior Vice President of Tata Consultancy Services. And prior to this, he was a Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer and a member of the Board of Directors of CMC Limited, a very familiar name to many of us going back many years, which is a subsidiary of the globally acclaimed TCS now. At CMC, Sri Ramanan led CMC's remarkable and rapid transformation from a domestic government organization to a truly global IT systems engineering and integration organization. Sri Ramanan was recognized as the CEO of the Year award with the CEO of the Year award in 2015 by CMO Asia, India's top 3 most valuable CEOs in business world, and Indira Gandhi for 2 years, and Indira Gandhi Sadbhavna and Rajiv Gandhi Shiromani awards in 2005 and 6. Sri Ramanan is an alumnus of IIT Bombay. He's also a Harvard Business School Advanced Management Program alumni and accredited by Cambridge University in Sustainable Leadership. With that introduction, I would like to request Sri Ramanan to kindly deliver the keynote address to the audience and launch this program with his insights and his words. Over to you, Mr. Ramanan.
Thank you, Premnath, for that very generous introduction. And it was sort of embarrassing to listen to that myself in terms of the length of the introduction. But anyway, I'm very grateful to you for that. First and foremost, good evening to all the people who have logged on from India, and good morning or good afternoon for all the people who have logged on from different parts of the world. It's indeed a pleasure and privilege for me to be part of a very important launch, the AIM Prime program, in partnership with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, in partnership with Venture Center, and in partnership with the PSA's office, the Principal Scientific Advisor Office. And I can see familiar faces, including Ayesha here, who has also been part and instrumental in building the Atal Innovation Mission since its inception. And we also have Ishita, Agrawal, and the others. I'd also like to convey my greetings to Mr. Ashley Stevens, President of the Focus IP Group, and all the others who have logged on. Indeed, this is, as Dr. Premnath had already shared, this is very important initiative from an Atal Innovation Mission perspective, and not only from an AIM perspective, but I would say from a global perspective. We are living in very, very different times. A simple virus has paralyzed nations across the world. It has created grievous disruption of lives and livelihoods. It has created grievous disruption to supply chains, and it has created a fear of uncertainty in our minds. What the future holds for us. What are other global pandemics lurking in the horizon? What about the issues of climate change, which is going to have a major impact, if at all they do happen? And there is enough literature to show that unless we do something very quickly about it, this can become a major issue. What about the world in a post-COVID-19 situation? There is already a lot of nationalistic fervors being, whipping up hysteria in many nations. And how do we address further disruption to supply chains because of all of this? So when you take all these things into consideration, we are living in a world with great number of challenges ahead for us in the future. But at the same time, there is enough reason to be optimistic, particularly, I would say, in India, but I would also say across the rest of the world. After all, we are a country of 1.3 billion people, where more than 65% of our people are under 35 years old. We have built over the years more than 1.4 million schools, more than 10,500 engineering and related institutions, more than 39,000 colleges, and we have more than 150 million young students entering into the workplace. We have acquired a scientific temper, so to say, within our schools and universities. And this academic education that we have been having has been serving us well. After all, we have developed a country and a nation with over $190 billion of ITES export services that we have created just in the last 15-20 years. So in a manner of speaking, India has also become a potential knowledge capital of the world. And all of this augurs well for us as a country, with a demographic dividend that has tremendous youthful energy, tremendous enthusiasm, and a tremendous innovation capability within our country, and the focus on education having been so very strong. And the second thing is we are a growing economy. We are one of the fastest growing economies of the world. Barring the COVID-19 crisis, we have been growing at 6 to 8%. And thirdly, we are living in a world where technology and science is changing the very shape of the world that we are all living in. It's changing the way every one of us is experiencing the world and the way the world is experiencing us. And because technology is advancing at a rapid pace, including 3D printing, robotics, IoT, miniaturized electronics, augmented virtual reality, 5G technologies, biotech technologies, all of these are advancing at an exponential pace. But more importantly, they're also becoming affordable, accessible, available, and advanced. And then we have big things going on in computing technologies, nano computing, supercomputing technologies, or quantum computing technologies, and therefore artificial intelligence and technologies like blockchain or big data analytics and processing have become realities today. And therefore, we are in, I would say, in the history of mankind and in the history of our country, we are at a very unique position where we are able to leverage all of these advantages, the advances in science, technology, research, and innovation, the advantages of a demographic dividend, and the advantages of a growing economy to spur innovation and entrepreneurship to a completely different level. And what we need to do is whatever innovation, whatever research that we are doing, how do we find a mechanism of ensuring that this research is translating itself into implementable innovations that can have market impact? And that is what the Prime program is all about. It's a program for being able to drive deep tech science research and convert that research into innovations that will have market, that will create and enable market enterprises or market ready entrepreneurs. There is a big gap between lab to market. And that difference, many of our researchers, there has been always a lot of research happening in universities. But are we in a position to apply a lot of that research to create solutions for problems that we see in and around the communities that we live in? And India has many challenges. COVID-19 was just a set of challenges that I talked about. But more importantly, India has many more challenges. We have 22% of our country below the poverty line. We have 44% of our country agri-economy base. We have more than 715 districts in our country, out of which 115 are aspirational districts, which are at the bottom of the pyramid in terms of basic access to healthcare, education, clean drinking water, sanitation, waste management, or affordable housing. They don't have access to lives and livelihoods. We have more than 8,000 small towns and cities, and we have only 8 tier 1 cities. How are we going to ensure that we leverage science, technology, and innovation to prevent this huge urban migration and create thousands of hubs of innovation and job creation? How do we also ensure that we have the 650,000 villages that we have, they all become self-employable, and you create hubs of innovation close to these villages? So these are some of the challenges. And the only way you're going to be able to address these challenges is to leverage technology to the hilt, promote research in our universities, in our schools, or even in our research institutions, and be able to translate that research into practical innovations that will have great impact across not only India, but across the rest of the world. And that is why the Atal Innovation Mission has launched a series of initiatives, as Dr. Premnath said. At the school level, we have launched thousands of tinkering labs. More than 7,200 tinkering labs are operational today. And more than 2.5 million students are now having access to the latest of technologies. But more importantly, it is creating in them the urgency for understanding research and innovation, and converting them and being able to convert them from a rote learning mindset that we are all used to a problem solving innovative mindset. And when they go into universities, we are creating this network of incubators across, which will foster thousands of startups. Today, we have 68 incubators which are operational across the country. But out of these 68 incubators, in just a matter of about 3.5 years, we have more than 1960 startups, and out of which 575 are women-led startups. Now, this is a fantastic growth of startups, with 33% of our startups being women-led startups. And that is also very important. How do we ensure that diversity of gender, diversity of geography, diversity of focus areas, these are achieved through our incubators and promote the startups. And finally, we are also having challenges that we launch to address both the socio-economic divide that we have in our country, as well as the various economic opportunities for driving growth. And the framework of Atmanirbhar Bharat that the Honorable Prime Minister has so beautifully laid out, the pillars of demographic dividend, the pillar of demand of 1.3 billion people, the pillar of infrastructure, where we need smart infrastructure, not only physical infrastructure, but also supported by digital infrastructure, the pillar of socio-economic progress, and finally, the pillar of technology, gluing all them together and creating impactable innovations through the research that we are creating. Now, all of this needs also a very structured approach. Innovation is intuitive, creative, but that innovation and creativity, when supported with a structured approach towards converting that innovation, that research idea, and that discovery into an innovation that has market impact and become market ready, there is a science behind this creativity too. And that is what this Prime program is designed for. It will bring in very valuable knowledge, the best practices across the world, thanks to Venture Center, and to see how deep tech startups, see, there are different types of startups, as we all are aware. Some are purely commercially driven, but there are many which are deep tech startups, which take a lot of time in terms of research and then the ability of converting them into innovation and into products and into market impact. So that science and those best practices and what goes into making a great research idea into a world-class product with world-class impact, that is what hopefully the Prime program will enable all the participants of this program to be able to learn and to be able to internalize and to be able to apply. And I'm very, very grateful to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, grateful to Venture Center, very grateful to the PSA's office for initiating that. And of course, all the partners who are going to be part of this. Collaboration is key. Having access to global best practices is key to the success of any one of AIM's initiatives. And all our initiatives are supported mainly by partners. It is that which makes this a success, because all of them are equal stakeholders in this innovation bandwagon that we have all joined together. We all need to work together, government, academia, universities, private sector, NGOs, civil organizations, as well as at the state and local levels, to be able to leverage this enormous possibility that science, research, and deep tech technologies offer for creating great solutions which will have benefit not only from an economic point of view, but also from a social point of view, and for creating a better world and a better planet for all of us to live in. So thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to share a few thoughts on this particular occasion. And I wish all the participants the very best. Atal Innovation Mission this is one of the series of programs that we have launched during the course of the year. We launched a program called AIM ICREST along with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And that program was to build capacity management to create a robust ecosystem for startups in our incubators. We want world-class incubators with world-class startups. And that means you have to build the capacity and the management capability, not only at the incubation level, but also at the startup level. The second program we launched was AIM iLeap. And that was to create leadership, innovative leadership for entrepreneurs to be able to accelerate their profitable growth. That was what iLeap stood for. And that has been also initiated with one of our partners. And now the AIM Prime program to be able to drive deep tech research and science into applications and innovations that will have market readiness and market impact. That is what the AIM Prime program is all about. And we are very grateful to all our partners for enabling this. Thank you so much. All the very best. And I look forward to working with all of you in the next several months in whatever capacity that I am in to be able to support this initiative. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Shri Ramanan. Thank you so much for the vision and outlined and the path suggested. May I now request everybody to kindly turn on their videos so that my colleague Neha can click a few quick pictures for this event. requesting everyone to switch on their videos. And Neha, maybe you can tell us when you're done.
Yes. All right, everyone ready? Requesting everyone not to move so that I can take a quick click. Yeah, just a minute. Another minute. Too many windows. I'm sorry to keep you all waiting. There are 3 windows.
That's a happy thing to happen. So
Yeah.
are you done now?
No, just another minute.
Last
Yeah.
one, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Quickly. Okay. Let's continue, Muk.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
Yes, I think, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So, inviting once again Dr. Premnath, kindly could you present an overview of the Prime program?
Sure. I'm just trying to get to the screen. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Yeah. Okay, great. Okay. Uh, thank you very much, Mukta. Let me just give you the audience a brief introduction to the AIM Prime program. Um, the AIM Prime, as Mukta mentioned, Prime stands for Program for Researchers on Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We intended it as something which people who are working on deep tech technology development, learning about different tools and different methodologies to take their ideas to market, and also being able to build startups which are sustainable and scalable over a period of time. So that is the objective of the AIM Prime program. As Mr. Ramanan mentioned, we are grateful for the support of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and also this event is catalyzed by the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor and the Pune Knowledge Cluster, which is an initiative again of the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor. Yeah. Um, if you look at startups as a whole, by the way, startups are very different from other micro, small, medium enterprises that you might come across. There are some few essential elements of startups, in my opinion. One is every startup focuses on providing a solution to a problem. So there is a problem, there is a solution that it provides, and that solution that it provides is amenable to a revenue model, and therefore there is a case, there's a business case for building that startup. But that is so for many other businesses, right? What becomes more important in many startups is that element of foresight, an element of future opportunity, and the associated uncertainty and risk. Startups are very often forward looking ahead into opportunities which will be important in the future. And because the future is not yet written, there is an element of risk and uncertainty associated with it. And when you look at the future, you're imagining the future. Very often, you have to also think of new ways to shape that future, and that's how the innovation comes in. And these innovations could be organizational or technical novelties. Organizational novelties, many of you have heard it as, say, business process innovations, and technical novelty as technical innovations that are behind many of the startups. And of course, there's a very important element of scaling. Most startups start as ideas that look small initially, and then they become big over a period of time. And that the very act of scaling is associated with that idea, that it's a small idea which the founders imagine it as a big important development. Not everybody necessarily sees it that way in the very beginning, but as it evolves, as it shapes up, it takes a life of its own. And many startups that you're aware of today and talk about are like that. Google, for example, would have been just another startup engine at one time, but look at what was the potential that it could realize, and what is possible. Even Tesla, for example, at all of these companies, or Indian companies, including, say, a Biocon, at one time would have been perceived as a small idea and growing up to become something much, much larger. So these are elements of startups. Now, in science-based deep tech startups, there is more to it. It's a type of startup, and very often the foresight that we talk about here leverages scientific insights, very often a deep understanding of the problems, or a deep understanding and a deep knowledge of with the various tool sets that are required to build the solution. And the solution often leverages very specialized know-how, and it could often be protected by intellectual property of different kind. It's based on an invention of some kind or a technical novelty. So the innovation very often behind deep tech comes from the technical novelty of sides. And by virtue of all of these differences, the way these startups are resourced, developed, de-risked is very different. So let's take a simple example of, say, a pharma company working on new therapeutics. You can imagine that you're working with initially with a set of molecules which might be very important one day. The founders are convinced it is going to be important. Everybody sees a lot of risk in its development. They're aware of the odds of success, and the founders progress such an idea forward, progressively de-risking it. Requires a lot of considerable specialized know-how in developing that idea. They have to protect their IP in different ways. They might have to source technology from different sources as well. And as they progress through different stages over a period of time, through systematic de-risking, through maybe preclinical studies and then clinical studies, phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, and so on, they decrease the risk and increase the value of the company as it progresses. And in this process, the way the company's resource is very different from a typical company that you might see in, say, the e-commerce space, and the process of de-risking is more involved and in-depth. So these are the kind of companies that we are talking about here: science-based deep tech startups in different domains, in different disciplines, which are very important to society, but have unique challenges in in progressing to the market. The Prime program, the objectives are: one, to train and mentor the startup leadership teams and academic entrepreneurs on setting up and advancing such science-based deep tech startups. And number two, to prepare and equip incubation managers in mentoring science-based deep tech startups. And I've mentioned some of these unique challenges, so I won't spend too much time on it. But as I just to briefly touch upon it again, there are several technology development and de-risking challenges involved in deep tech startups. Multiple stages, length of time. Mr. Ramanan also mentioned the length of time. Intellectual property strategy becomes very important in such domains. You're investing considerable time and efforts, and you want to ensure that you have protection, a sustainable protection for the investors to invest without worrying too much about the fact that somebody else would beat them to it. Partnering with public institutions and government and technical know-how from such institutions is quite important very often, because a lot of the investment in infrastructure, facilities, specialized capabilities happens in such institutions. There's a need for supportive ecosystems with the right expertise, special facilities, talent, diverse funding mechanisms, and partners. And of course, very often you find that these domains are led by first generation entrepreneurs with science and technology orientation, and that poses its own opportunities and challenges. These are not necessarily family businesses. Very often they could be, but very often they're first generation entrepreneurs, as we see it in India. We are very happy to welcome a very diverse group of experts as faculty to this program. You will be listening to Dr. Ashley Stevens, but a few other of our faculty members are listed here. Dr. Hiran Vedam, Dr. Uday Fadke, Shrikant Shastri, Dr. Anurag Mehral, Kaushik Gala, Ravi Sarangapani, Satyadash, Sujata Bogawat, covering different aspects. I also wanted to point out that we will have a global feel and different insights from different parts of the world. Ashley, of course, has worked not only in the west coast of the US and other developed economies, but also has experience from developing world. Hiran has been working in Singapore, the US, and other jurisdictions. Uday has talks about what's called the triple chasm model for developing such businesses, and is from the Cambridge ecosystem. Shrikant, again, is very well-known person in the incubation community now, and has been engaging with not only Indian companies but companies overseas. And Anurag is from the Stanford ecosystem, with specifically with an association with the Stanford Biodesign program. Um, uh, the other experts bring in hands-on experience which are directly relevant to entrepreneurs in sales, marketing, in operations, in regulations, in working with companies, working with research organizations, building networks effectively, and managing finances effectively as well. Our Venture Center mentoring team will also be back-ending this entire program. They will spend considerable time working with some of the startups who sign up for this program as well, including several of our team members who focus on different aspects of incubation and mentoring, and different types of startups as well. This is a glimpse of some of our team members, and we are very grateful for all the people who are contributing to making this program happen, both from the Venture Center, from Atal Innovation Mission, from the Office of PSA, from Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, who are contributing in many ways in shaping this. And you will hear their vision for this program as well, and we are grateful to all of them for their efforts. This is a blended learning program. There'll be a combination of online classrooms, one-on-one mentorings, live projects and exercises, and of course, peer-to-peer learning as well. Not only within the cohort, but peers who have gone and done it and can share learning with all of us. There'll also be resources we are putting together, which will be available, a playbook, videos, libraries, which will be available, of templates and forms and so on and so forth. In the first wave of participants, we will be focusing on trying to bring in 10 startups, 2 members each, 10 faculty entrepreneurs, 2 members each, and senior incubation members from 10 incubators. And we hope that with such a program, we'll be able to also take on about 20 projects to handhold and take ahead, which will be live and directly relevant projects to all of you as well. So the first wave timelines are roughly like this. We will begin some of our classroom sessions around June. Hope to finish it in about 3 months, but these classroom sessions will be interactive, will include a lot of different activities and live projects. And then following that, there will be a period of mentoring and handholding and advancing the startup to different levels of fundraising that we plan to look at. And we will bring in different partners at that time. The classroom sessions, the modules are structured as follows. The first module focuses more on inventive problem solving, technology development, de-risking, IP creation and protection. The second one talks more about market and industry analysis, value proposition, positioning, competition, and IP strategy. And module 3 talks more about business models, strategy, communication, and communicating the opportunity to various stakeholders, marketing and sales. And module 4 is more about execution, financial and resource planning in great detail, and also understanding how exactly it is done and how it impacts your ability to raise money or to not bring in unnecessary surprises, and fundraising itself. The company creation, operations, teams, partnerships that you want to build along the way, and finally ecosystems, peers, role models. It won't be linear as it's shown here, but interspersed in such a way that you're able to progress your own projects along over a period of time as well. I'm going to stop here, but I must tell you something about the Venture Center, which is at the back end of this particular program in designing and implementing it. I think you've got a brief introduction from Mugdha. We have been working in this domain of science-based entrepreneurship for some time and are recipients of several national and international awards. We focus specifically on knowledge-based businesses and enterprises and inventive enterprises which are sustainable and scalable over a period of time. We have focused on trying to build supportive ecosystems. This is for the benefit of the incubators here, which can support such activities. And the general philosophy is that if you build the ecosystem to support it, the rest of the things will gradually start falling into place as well, and things will happen. And we focus exclusively on entrepreneurship as a vehicle for translating useful and meaningful innovations to market. Today, we work a lot more in the health, rehabilitation, and elderly space, but we also have companies in the energy, environment, waste, sanitation space, agriculture, food, nutrition space, and inventive enterprises in other sectors. That's our focus. But in this program, it is sector agnostic. We also are trying to build other programs out as well, and we're happy to share those experiences and also introduce you to peers in those domains as well. Some of the ecosystem components which we have made available, and I want to point you to a few which you can all use, are some of these. Besides, of course, some of these components in the ecosystem, some of you will have access to those. I want to point out that we have technology commercialization support in-house through the TechX, and regulatory support facilitation through our RIFC, and many other such resource centers which might be directly relevant, and these are open to all, and they are not restricted to our incubatees. You're welcome to please use them, whoever wishes to participate and contribute to that. These are just some fact files of the kind of number of companies we have been engaging with. So we are definitely focused on from concept and inception of the company to pre-revenue, early revenue stages, and that learning will be happy to share with all participants in this program as well. Here are some of our companies which have products in the market which you might have seen in the recent past, in the recent times. The first citywide demonstration of organic waste conversion to bio-CNG, 300 tons per day plant in India, the first in India, in Pune, working with the Pune Municipal Corporation. You have heard during the pandemic about MyLab, this first CDSU approved indigenous RT-PCR and antigen test for COVID-19, and various other technologies here from CTC, the first CTC platforms for circulating tumor cell detections to, dual powered hand crank defibrillators, to USFD approved spinal implants, to process and modeling and simulations, to biosurfactants, to drone operating systems, to bioreactors, and so on. These are some of the glimpses of a few companies with commercial products out there in the last 1 year or so. And of course, we are affiliated and recognized by various different organizations. So I'll stop here and I will give the floor back to Mugdha. Thank you very much. And we look forward to all of you joining this program and benefiting from it. And we'll continue with the rest of the presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Premnath, for giving us an overview of the AIM Prime program. I would now request Dr. Ayesha Chaudhary, Officer on Special Duty with the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, to speak on behalf of the Office of PSA and share the Office's vision of science, technology, and innovation clusters and the role for science-based deep tech startups in shaping these clusters. Ayesha connected the dots between Venture Center and AIM to help make this program come to fruition, and we are thankful to her for her vision and thoughtfulness. Briefly about her, Ayesha is working towards introducing structural and policy reforms in her current role. She was earlier member of the founding team at AIM, NITI Aayog, leading one of the flagship initiatives of the government towards designing and implementing innovation programs for India. Her professional experience ranges from academic research to starting up her own medtech venture to corporate business and government of India in designing, developing, and implementing high impact and affordable science and technology solutions across healthcare and education. She is a biomedical engineer, researcher by training, alumnus of IIT Bombay and the Stanford India Biodesign Program. Several recognitions to her credit, a few to mention: MIT Innovator Under 35 Award, US State Department's IVLP, and Your Stories 100 Emerging Voices. So over to you, Ayesha.
Thank you so much, Mugdha. It's a pleasure to be here. Dear Mr. Ramanan, Premnath, Dr. Ashley, Stevens, Ishita, Anjani, all participants, and most important, the core team behind making this happen, both from Venture Center and Atal Innovation Mission. I'm extremely delighted to participate in the curtain raiser launch of the Prime program. And I'm going to share two streams of thoughts with our audiences. And I'm assuming that most of you, especially the scientists, would resonate with what I say. If you look at the journey of human evolution, the old age philosophy gravitated towards human genes being the master of every outcome. And this was, of course, originally propagated by the molecular biologists and the geneticists. It further switched to a diametrically opposite viewpoint that was provided by psychologists, stating that training and practice alone contribute to human performance differences. Now, however, in the last few years, it has become evident that both were only partially correct. Excellence is achieved by a combination of factors, including genes, the long hours of practice that go into the preparation, which is also now called as the 10,000 hour principle, the right opportunity one grabs, the environment, and so on. So it is this constellation of factors that governs human performance. While genes provide a potential to excel, whether you elevate beyond your threshold and achieve excellence depends on this constellation of factors. So in my mind, the AIM Prime program that we're all launching here today will be this constellation of factors for the scientists in India. It is going to provide a very unique opportunity to the scientists, coupled along with long hours of practice and the appropriate environment, to transform the way scientists think about problem solving, technology development, and societal impact. So we're all here to support this endeavor to bring out the best in our scientists through the Prime program. The second point I wanted to share is about the science and technology clusters. Now, these are formal umbrella structures for the science and technology institutions to have better synergy while retaining their autonomy. They are being established with extensive support from the Office of the Principal Scientific Advisor to the Government of India, along with the NITI Aayog, the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Science and Technology, along with several private partners. The goal here is threefold, and it can be described by visualizing a pyramid structure. So the bottom of the pyramid is about developing a shared ecosystem that allows integration of science, research, and education. This will entail three things: sharing of high-end labs and equipment, allowing mobility of researchers across institutions, and very important, conducting high-quality human resource development programs in partnership with the industry. And again, the AIM Prime program is a beginning in this direction through the clusters. The middle of the pyramid focuses on clusters becoming regional solution providers to local bodies, state governments, industries, and creating regional influence by solving local problems, leveraging science and technology as a tool. And for this, they may partner with incubators, also connect with state science and technology councils and innovation societies. And this is where, again, agencies such as the Atal Innovation Mission will play a very significant role. The top of the pyramid for the clusters is about them becoming nationally and globally competitive in 1 to 2 selected domains of key strength and contributing to the national missions of the government and participating substantially in global mega science projects. So that is how we are visualizing the clusters to be able to achieve three broad objectives by bringing together institutions of science and technology. And this won't be limited to only R&D labs. It will be open to startups, it is open to incubators, the private industry, the CSR foundations. All people are essentially coming together to be able to leverage the science and technology to solving societal problems. So, in summary, what we strongly believe is that the next decade for India is all about positioning science both as a public good and a profitable business opportunity for scientists. And such an outlook, we believe, will transform the way science is conducted, measured, and communicated in India. And again, in my mind, I would say that Prime is the beginning of a longer journey. So I wish all the very best to the core team at the Venture Center for this endeavor. And many, many thanks to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, the Atal Innovation Mission, the NITI Aayog, and of course the Pune cluster, without whose support this would not have been possible. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ayesha. We are happy for your contributions and also happy to contribute to Office of PSA's vision of creating multiple STI clusters in India. I'm now inviting Ms. Ishita Agrawal, Program Director, Atal Innovation Mission, NITI Aayog, to speak about the conception of this AIM Prime program, the need and the opportunity that it represents for the AIM network. Ishita is the prime mover of the AIM Prime program, and we are grateful for her sincere efforts to energize and scale up the science-based deep tech entrepreneurship in India. Ishita is part of the founding team of Atal Innovation Mission NITI Aayog and has been working at the intersection of policy, technology innovation, and entrepreneurship. She has over 14 years of experience focused on the early stage startup ecosystem with hands-on experience working with leading players in incubation, early stage venture finance, development finance, and the government policy. She has been involved with multidisciplinary responsibilities including program design and management, policy planning and implementation, developing collaborations, and consulting operations and monitoring. So over to you, Ishita.
Thank you, Mukta, for this warm introduction. Very good evening to everyone, and of course, good morning, good afternoon to wherever you are, depending on the part of the world that you are. And a warm welcome to everyone as we take this first step of taking technologies from the lab to the market space for the benefit of the society. So, you know, our Prime Minister has been persistently nudging our scientific community to make use of science and improve the quality of life of the common man. And AIM Prime will act as a catalyst in that direction, as also mentioned by my colleagues Ayesha as well as Mr. Ramanan. And so I will call upon the AIM network and the AIM community to please leverage this. I would call upon the AIM community, the AIM network, the AIM startups, the AIM incubators to leverage upon this opportunity as much as possible. To begin with, the startups that are engaged with any science-based ventures at any of the AIM-supported incubators are, of course, encouraged to apply. I do hope that all the incubators that are logged in today and all the startups that are logged in today on this call are already looking at the website of the Prime program and are already scanning the application page that has gone live just a few moments ago. We want more and more deep tech startups to apply and become a part of this program because we want more and more deep tech startups to scale up and have their products and solutions in the open market. As the number of deep tech startups in the country grow, we also want the support infrastructure to grow at the same scale. And therefore, we would also encourage all the AIM incubators to apply to become a part of the first cohort of this program. As Dr. Premnath had mentioned, there'll be about 10 incubator teams that will become a part of the program and shadow the trainers and understand the process for expediting the scaling up of science-based ventures. And the program has been designed for enabling rapid scaling up, and we expect that all the incubator team members who would be given a preference to be a part of the first cohort, that we expect them to become trainers for the next cohort and contribute in spreading the AIM Prime program to the entire scientific community and the deep tech startup community in India. A team, the other AIM in supported institutions, everyone from the AIM family is invited to connect to us. They are welcome to contribute, to participate, to reach out to us, and we'll connect you with the core team and see how we can make you a part of this initiative. And for the other incubators who are not able to become a part of the the first cohort, and every other incubator in the country, there is, again, like Dr. Premnath mentioned, the entire journey or the entire process of scaling up the deep tech startups. It shall be documented in the form of a playbook, videos, articles, and other resources that will be available, that we will make available in a phased manner to all the other beneficiaries. So I would just say I would keep it short because I am the only person, I guess, in between now and keeping you from hearing Dr. Ashley Stevens. So I will just end it here saying, requesting everyone to please participate in this, and we wishing everyone best of luck. And together we'll make this a great program. Thank you, Magda. Back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ishita. I would now like to invite Mr. Anjani Bansal, Private Sector Partnerships Lead at Bill Melinda Gates Foundation, to share his insights and comments on the occasion. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation has been a steady supporter and champion of social innovation and entrepreneurship, especially that is founded on science and technology. We are grateful for the partnership of Bmgf. Anjani leads private sector leadership partnerships in India at the Bmgf. He has extensive experience in investing in sectors such as agriculture, financial services, and education in India and Africa, and serves on boards of organizations engaged in advancing startups and MSMEs. Anjani is actively involved in shaping the startup ecosystem in the country, both as a mentor and angel investor. In his prior roles, he has worked in investment banking and technology development, and he is an alumnus of Indian School of Business. Over to you, Anjani.
Yeah, thanks, Mugdha, and good evening. I just want to echo everything that has been said before me. It's been an incredible opportunity for us to work with Atal Innovation Mission and Venture Center, and I'm really grateful for that. I fundamentally believe that the starting point of solving a problem is for someone to have a vision and think what that end state would look like. And I think that's what Atal Innovation Mission, PSA's office and Venture Center has done with setting up this program. And organization and to me, that vision almost acts like a gravity. And organizations like ours just, get pulled towards that vision and contribute in whatever way we can. I will definitely, what I have seen over the last few years that I have worked with the startup ecosystem in India is that deep tech is without doubt the next frontier. The ecosystem in country has evolved significantly. As Mr. Ramanan pointed out, a lot of building blocks are now in place. But now is the time when we need to create that enabling environment that allows the entrepreneurs and researchers working on science-based innovations to get ahead. And some of the frictions or unique challenges that they face, which Dr. Premnath pointed out, require specialized support. And this program very much aims to address or provide that support. So I really hope and believe that the capabilities that this program will create will help a very large number of deep tech science-based innovators in the country, and really help push forward that agenda of our country in the near future. What we have seen from our experience is that solutions which are developed outside or in developed countries are not always applicable in our context. So we require that capacity to develop homegrown solutions, and this program pretty much aims to do that. So I'm really excited about this initiative, and really look forward to working with all the organizations that are involved in taking this forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Anjani, for those words. We are grateful for your efforts and the support given by Bmgf. So now we are ready for the talk by Dr. Ashley Stevens. Thank you, Dr. Ashley, for taking the time out to join us today. We do realize it is quite early in the morning in Boston. Dr. Ashley Stevens is presently the president of Focus IP Group, LLC. Before founding Focus IP Group, an intellectual property consulting company in 2011, Dr. Stevens was director of the Technology Transfer Office at Boston University for 17 years, following 4 years in a similar role at the Dana-Farber Cancer Institute, a teaching affiliate of the Harvard Medical School. He has helped create over 60 spin-out companies from these two institutions, a number of which raised substantial amounts of venture capital. At Boston University, the Technology Transfer Office was located within Boston University's in-house venture fund, the Community Technology Fund, and Dr. Stevens was part of CTF's management team. For 10 years, he taught graduate-level interdisciplinary course on technology-based entrepreneurship in the Entrepreneurship Center of Boston University's Queenstrom School of Business, and is a guest professor at Osaka University, where he continues to teach an intensive version of this course, G-Tech, each summer. He also taught in the entrepreneurship boot camp offered at the annual meeting of the Biotechnology Industry Organization. Prior to entering the technology transfer profession, Dr. Stevens worked in the biotechnology industry for nearly 10 years and co-founded 2 companies. He was co-founder and general manager of GenMap Incorporation, one of the first companies established to work on the human genome. He wrote its business plan, raised and closed its Series A financing, and ran the company for its first 2 years. Myriad Genetics, the pioneer in testing for genetic predisposition to breast cancer, which has current market capitalization of $1.2 billion, spun out of GenMap. Dr. Stevens is past president of Autumn and has lectured and published extensively on valuing technologies, technology transfer licensing, and the commercialization of early stage technologies. He holds a BA in Natural Sciences and an MA and a DPhil in Physical Chemistry from Oxford University. He is certified licensing professional and a registered technology transfer professional. I invite Dr. Ashley Stevens to share his thoughts on building vibrant high-tech clusters, innovation ecosystems, and local technology commercialization capabilities, the global experiences. Over to you, Dr. Ashley.
Ashley, we can see 2. Maybe you can go to presentation mode with the first slide. Ashley, we can't hear you. Yeah. Hello, Ashley, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you. Yes, please.
Okay,
You
good.
can share the screen with it was in displaying the whole screen, so perhaps you can go with.
Can you? I do apologize for this. I am a Zoom person, not a WebEx person. Are you
Yeah.
seeing both this
Yeah,
slide and the next slide?
No, right now you have unshared your screen. So can you share it again, please? And then try to going straight to full screen mode on your PPT.
Okay.
Share again, please.
Okay.
Yes, now you can use the full screen mode, please, straight away.
So where is
You can just go to slideshow on the top left.
Are you seeing it now?
Yeah, but we can see both your screen, both the first slide and second slide. It's in your. Um, can you try going to slideshow on top? Yeah, and then just go to from the beginning on the left.
But I think it's going to be in the same mode. No. Yeah, it's still
Oh,
in
yeah,
the same
yeah,
mode.
it is in the same mode. Yeah. Maybe you can look at the option below.
See if that helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. How's that?
Yes, that's good. Let's get
Okay,
going. Yeah.
very good. So I do
there's-
apologize for my clumsiness on this. First of all, I want to thank the various people who have made this event possible, and it's my pleasure to be here. So I met Premnath and Manisha about 8 years ago, I think 9 years ago, when I taught a couple of courses in India, in New Delhi, Hyderabad, and Pune over a couple of years. And I was delighted when Premnath, who I remembered well, reached out to me in about October and told me about the Venture Center and his work in it. And it is a pleasure to be able to help him with this activity, which I think is absolutely spot on. So I'm going to talk today about the triple helix model of economic development, the impact, and since the cluster of regional technology transfer offices, of which the Venture Center is part, is focused on biotechnology, I'm going to look at the impact of public sector research on drug discovery. And I'm going to illustrate the power that academic technology has to transform economies by talking about how in the almost 40 years I've lived in Massachusetts, it has risen to dominate the global pharmaceutical R&D world. And then I am going to finish up with two cautionary notes about how do we go from where you are today to where you want to be in the future. So my thesis is that academic technologies have the power to transform economies. Increasingly, over the last 30, 40 years, companies have cut back on their fundamental research. The days when IBM, Bell Labs, Burroughs Wellcome would receive Nobel Prizes are long gone, and companies are doing incremental research. And the fundamental breakthroughs come from the public sector. The role of academic technology transfer in transforming economies came to be realized in the US fairly soon after Bayh-Dole was passed, the Key Act in 1980 that enabled academic institutions to commercialize their technologies. So here's a cover story from Business Week of April of 1992. Big black letters, industrial policy. The very phrase rattles the teeth. It implies bureaucracy. It suggests government will pick winners and losers. Done badly would certainly hurt America. With the Cold War over and a global economy taking shape, America needs to shore up its competitiveness. Well, this doesn't sound much like America. America isn't very big on industrial policy. It relies on the private sector. And here, just 6 months later, was a very different cover of Business Week. Hotspots, America's new growth regions, Medical Alley, Laser Lane, Ceramic Corridor, places like this. And inside was this map showing these hotspots. And what was noticeable was much what was not on the maps. There wasn't You're not seeing Route 128 in Boston here. You're not seeing Research Triangle in North Carolina there. You're not seeing Silicon Valley in California there. These are America's new hotspots. And as I read the article, it identified the ingredients of a high-tech cluster. It said a major research university, a place with a high quality of life, building on local industry, cooperation between local universities, businesses, and governments, technology transfer from the university, funding sources, state sources, venture capital, angel sources, and the role of incubators. And they talked about the phases of economic development that these clusters see. First, you see a bunch of startups. Then you often see the new division of a major US company move in. And then foreign companies move in. And you got export-led growth. Now, I've been working in tech transfer for about a year and a half by this time. I thought it was an interesting job. I didn't realize just what an important job it was going to be. And I was struck at the critical role of universities in this process. And this has led to what people call the triple helix model of economic development. Traditionally, if governments wanted to spur economic development, they would identify their clusters, they would identify companies working in those areas, and move to support them in research, maybe in capital construction. But in the triple helix model, we see government and academia cooperating with local industry and coming together to form, to result in economic development. So here's the history, for instance, of startups from universities that have been funded. This data comes from the Association of University Technology Managers, the professional association that represents university tech transfer in the US. And you can see when we started doing this survey in 1993, we asked for all the startups that have been done since the passage of Bayh-Dole. And you can see since then, there's been this steady climb in the number of startups. Even if you look here, in the time of the great financial crisis, universities kept continuing to fund startups. So you look at it, there have been 16,000 companies spun out of US universities in the nearly 40 years since Bayh-Dole. They stay very close to their local institution, the originating institution, which is why politicians love them. They're in every state in the union, and an enormous number have come from just two organizations, MIT and the California university system. And also very remarkably, they're very durable. Something like 95% of startup companies founder in their first 2 or 3 years. You can see 40% of these companies are still active. Obviously, many of them have been bought by other companies, but they're still alive in 2019. I'm going to shift gears now and talk a little bit about the impact of public sector research on drug discovery. And this is based on a paper we published in the New England Journal of Medicine in 2011. And when a mere PhD gets his papers accepted by an MD's journal, it always feels good. And we've been doing an update to this study. I've been working with Mark Rohrback at the National Institutes of Health. And we found in our update, this is unpublished at this point, there have been almost 360 FDA-approved drugs, biologics, vaccines, and in vivo diagnostics approved since about 1970. And of these, 242 came solely from US public sector research institutes. And I use that term to cover universities, teaching hospitals, and then government laboratories and private nonprofit research institutes. 72 came solely from institutions outside the US, and 43 came from both. And these are the countries that developed them. Several things are interesting. They're all major economies. Some big countries aren't represented. Italy, Spain, not one representative. Also, and we can talk about this some more, the emerging world is not here. I'm only aware of one drug that's received approval anywhere that came from a public sector research institute outside the US and these countries and Western Europe. And that was the National Institute of Immunology in India, which did develop a treatment for leprosy that received approval for use in India. These are the breakdown of the products: small molecules, the majority, biologics, vaccines, very important. Look at the response to COVID. Virtually all of the US, European, Chinese, and Russian vaccines have come pretty much straight from universities. And these are the therapeutic categories. These drugs are clustered in oncology, infectious disease, metabolic disorders, and central nervous system disorders, but they span the entirety of medicine. And these are the discovering institutions, the ones that have created the most. There's about 120 institutions that have discovered at least one. And it's very interesting to see the number of these that have come, these top producing institutions, from institutions outside of the US. Now, I moved to Massachusetts to join the biotechnology industry almost 40 years ago. And I've been privileged to see how Massachusetts has grown in this profession in the world. When I moved here, since 1975, there was only one pharmaceutical company of any substance in the US. That was the US headquarters of Astra of Sweden before the AstraZeneca merger. And when AstraZeneca built a research center here, it didn't even go to this location, which was stuck in the middle of the country. And Massachusetts back then was a high-tech economy, computers, telecommunications, things like that. And then what happened was in 1978, biotech companies started to spin out of Harvard, MIT, BU, Tufts, companies like Biogen, Genetics Institute, Genzyme, Serogen. I got to say, at the time, the Bay Area of San Francisco were ahead of Massachusetts at this time. Genentech, Cetus, Chiron were their big companies, none of which I might say are still independent, although of the Boston ones, Biogen is still an independent company here in Massachusetts. The ecosystem was very favorable to this. The universities in Massachusetts have been pioneers in life sciences research. We got 10 Nobel Prizes in life sciences between 1960 and 1980. We have been leaders in developing technology licensing offices. MIT founded theirs in 1960. And funding was good here. Massachusetts was the birthplace of organized venture capital with the formation of the American Research and Development Corporation in 1947. And because of that, there are a substantial number of VC firms who are around to fund the startups coming from the universities. And the proximity to Wall Street for when these companies grew to the point of going public was a distinct plus. The second big factor that was involved was the Massachusetts Biotechnology Research Park. Founded in 1984, it was the first biotech-specific research park in the world. It was about 40 miles west of Massachusetts. It was across the street from the University of Massachusetts Medical Center. Its first building had a biotech company on the first 2 floors and an incubator on the 3rd floor. So it was growing the next generation of tenants. And now it contains 5 buildings. Later in the 1980s, the first big pharma started to move in. And BASF of Germany was the first big pharma to move to Massachusetts in 1989. And they did move to the Massachusetts Biotechnology Research Park. It gave the kind of environment they were comfortable with. And the reason they came was highly restrictive recombinant DNA rules driven by the Green Party in Germany drove the big 3 drug companies abroad to do their recombinant DNA work. And BASF developed the world's top-selling drug here, Humira, $20 billion in sales last year. And then, of course, BASF realized they couldn't adequately sell Humira, were bought by Abbott, who spun out AbbVie about 10 years ago. We also saw the rise of biopharmaceutical manufacturing. Genzyme, a homegrown company, received substantial incentives to produce Serodase, its first major product in Massachusetts. And others followed. And these are some of the other drugs that came to be built here, made here. And some of the startups succeeded and are FIBCOs, fully integrated biotechnology companies today, Biogen, Vertex, Some stumbled and were acquired. Genetics Institute lost the market for erythropoietin in the US to Amgen, and promptly got bought by American Home Products, who became Pfizer. So we have a major presence of Pfizer in Massachusetts. And some succeeded and were still acquired. Genzyme got bought by Sanofi about 10 years ago for $20 billion. And so Sanofi has a major presence in Massachusetts. And today you're seeing a constant flow of new companies. Just 2 weeks ago, a 4-year-old company called Pandion was bought by Merck for $1.85 billion with only phase 1A data. And I learnt a couple of weeks ago, having dinner with one of my former students, that she worked for Pandion, drove their manufacturing, and I think now is a very wealthy young woman. And you look at 2 of the COVID vaccines. Moderna partnered with the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases to come up with their vaccine, and Johnson & Johnson's vaccine was developed at the Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. And today, I think Massachusetts is the top center of pharmaceutical R&D globally. It's certainly a world-leading center of biopharmaceutical manufacturing, and all of the major pharmaceutical companies are represented, as well as a number of homegrown companies that have grown up and got products to the market. And if you go back to 1975, where we just had Astra, this is a truly, truly remarkable transformation. So as I think back over this, first of all, it took 40 years. And frankly, the first 20 years or so were unprofitable to the venture capitalists. There used to be a joke. The way to make a small fortune in biotech is to start with a big one. Now, over the last 20 years, the venture capitalists have finally worked out how to do it right. And I think the key enabling factor as to why Massachusetts got to this point is that nowhere in the world has more academic medical centers. And what is an academic medical center? It is a teaching hospital with a substantial research base that is part of the medical school of a major university. And we have 4 medical schools in Massachusetts: Harvard, BU, Tufts, UMass. Nobody has as many hospitals as Harvard. I'd leave a couple off to get everything on this slide. But I think the academic medical centers have been critical in this transformation. I said I'd finish up with a couple of cautionary notes. First of all, clearly technology transfer from academic institutions can have an impact on a country's economy. But this doesn't necessarily translate to the activity being profitable to the university. Think about it. If a tech transfer office negotiates a 5% royalty on a product that gets commercialized, or it owns 5% of a startup company that gets sold, it's doing a really, really great job, as good a job as it could be expected to do. But that means that 95% of the economic impact is outside the university, in the private sector, which is where it belongs, because the private sector had to finance the development of the university's inventions. And so tech transfer may benefit the country, but constitute a net cost to individual universities. In the US, where we've been doing it for 40 years, probably half the tech transfer offices lose money gross. They spend more than they bring in. And remember, when they bring in the money, they distribute shares to the inventors for research and only keep part to offset the costs. And of course, the problem is university presidents hate to see units that lose money. So the implication is that this is why governments must support tech transfer at their universities. And they have to consider it part of the country's core economic infrastructure, like airports and railways, and roads and the internet. And its support is particularly important in the early stages, which is why I was so pleased to see BIRAC supporting this network of regional tech transfer offices in India. Now, I believe that support is only for 3 years initially, and typically it's going to take 10 years till tech transfer offices have a chance of becoming self-supporting. And this is based on experience in many countries around the world. And many of the inventions that come from emerging country economies, I've seen in my work with WIPO, target local problems, opportunities, and issues, which is why I think government should look very favorably on providing this support. My second set of caveats is, I'm not going to go into them today because I think I've run over my time already, but this is a paper that I published in Nature Biotechnology 4 years ago. And it identifies the issues in developing tech transfer ecosystems in emerging economies. It could certainly be the subject of another talk at some point. But I will close by going back to one of Premnath's opening slides. I was very pleased to see that the AIM Prime program, one of its 2 target audiences, is incubator managers. Because in this paper, I talk about the fact that incubator managers, in my observation, are absolutely critical to the emerging of high-tech clusters. They are the local business schools for entrepreneurship. They know which companies are receptive to innovation and to working with small high-tech companies, or as you call them, deep tech. They know where sources of funding are available. Incubator managers are critical, and I was delighted to see that AIM Prime is focusing on them. So with that, I'll stop. Thank you for listening. And Premnath, I don't know whether we have time for some slides, some questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ashley, for this enlightening and insightful talk. You have several lessons for all of us here in India, and we look forward to your continuing guidance. Let me announce the chat box. In the chat box, the Mentimeter feedback link is up, and this is a very brief link, and we encourage each one of you to kindly provide your comments. If there are any questions, we can take some. Dr. Premnath.
Yeah, I think Anmol has been trying to answer some of the questions as we go along. But if you have any questions, please put it on the chat box and we will take it up as well. So Ashley, can I just request you to comment on what are the key things you think stimulate startup activity, especially in the deep sciences, of course, research university being one of them, but I remember you had some more points which you wanted to, which you spoke about in another occasion, the kind of factors which determine growth and success of deep tech science-based startups in a given ecosystem.
So you correctly identified that deep tech startups are different from most startups. If you go to business schools, they will tell you that the entrepreneur should identify the unmet market need and then work out how to fill that need. That's not what we do in deep tech. Deep tech is driven by new technical capabilities, things that scientists have discovered we can do today that we couldn't do yesterday. And so we are always, to a certain extent, a solution looking for a problem. And that provides particular challenges. And I think it's very important before people start quitting their jobs to join startups, that they go through a very thoughtful period of looking at the market for these, talking to end users and so forth, and making sure that there is going to be a good market. It's very important for tech transfer offices before licensing their technology to startups to go through a very rigorous evaluation process to make sure that if somebody does spend 2 or 3 or 4 years of their life on this, that at the end of the day, assuming the technology works, that people are going to want to buy it.
Ashley, would you like to comment on what would be the top things that an incubator manager could do in a local ecosystem to facilitate deep tech science-based startups and to help them grow into successful companies?
So the biggest problem with technologies coming out of universities is that they are very, very early stage. Because most research universities is funded by the government for two reasons: to advance the scientific knowledge base of the country and to train the next generation of researchers, the grad students and postdocs who actually do the work. And it's not to create new products and services. And so the technologies that come from universities have got tremendous risk. They have technical risk. We really don't know that it's going to work. The scientist has done it once and published it immediately before he or she gets scooped. And there's no analysis of whether there's a market there. And so the challenge in deep tech entrepreneurship is to go through successive rounds of de-risking. And so doing those analyses, finding sources of funding for translational research, proof of concept, these are critical. And in the US, at least, I will tell you, we still haven't solved the problem of getting good, reliable sources of government funding for that. We have a very robust system of what are called small business innovation research grants, which can only go to companies. But that means that somebody's already taken the technology and started to run with it. And the only sources of funding to do de-risking in the US are philanthropic. And I think it's tough to do de-risking in pharmaceuticals with small amounts of money. I think it's a lot easier to do de-risking in medical devices and diagnostics. Small amounts of money can go a very long way there. So I would say the incubator manager should be identifying sources of proof of concept funding, making sure that the tech transfer offices and the institutions that are originating these technologies have gone through a rigorous process of analysis of the commercial prospects, the IP prospects, the competitive landscape, and so forth.
One final question. I think we are over time. So one final question I wanted to ask you is your advice for governments, both local and central federal governments, for strengthening these ecosystems. What are the top 2 or 3 things you think we can do to strengthen these ecosystems and create a lot more productivity from what is available?
I think the 4 fundamentals that universities need from government is first, definitive ownership of their intellectual property created by their researchers. There must be no ambiguity. The university has to own it so that it controls the transfer. Second is there needs to be translational research funding to de-risk these technologies. There needs to be support for the technology transfer offices to manage this process. And finally, and this is much unrecognized as the critical role of this in the US, professors have to be able to take time off to work on the commercialization of their technologies. In the US, professors only have to work for the university 4 days a week. They get 1 day a week to consult. Most of them don't take it, but they can, which means if they want to do a startup, they can work with the startup and be seen to be working with the startup without being subject to criticism for cheating their university and shirking their academic responsibilities. That has been a critical factor in the success of university spinouts in the US.
Thank you. Anmol, are there any questions to be addressed from the question box?
No, there haven't been any.
I think you have addressed some of them already in the
Yes.
Q&A boxes, right?
Yes.
Okay. This is one which I'll take up before we close. I think there is a request to look at industry-specific, insights, and we do plan to do that, but we will do it by using case studies and peer-to-peer learning while we focus on the generalized concepts in the classroom sessions. So I think with that, let me thank Ashley. Thank you very much for addressing some of these questions, and thank you, Anmol, for taking some of those questions offline on the chat box. So over to you, Mugdha, and we can take it.
So, yeah, Dr. Premnath, do you want to quickly summarize with some closing remarks?
Well, I think we are late, so I won't take much time. First of all, thanks to everybody for participating. This is, in my opinion, one of the most important things we can do, which is look at how to build science-based deep tech startups. Many of the problems that we face today will require technology intervention with where insights come from the latest developments in science, and we cannot shy away from it. At the same time, it has to be an exercise where we learn from the best practices around the world, have good tools available to systematically plan and develop these ideas and take as many of these successfully to market as possible. There will be limitations of the ecosystem, but the good thing is that as far as ecosystems are concerned, entrepreneurs always seek out what they need. They have to be resourceful. They have to look around the world. They have to seek out ecosystems at different stages of their development. And it is always an activity which requires continuous innovation, not only in the technology side, but in how you resource it, how you create opportunities for yourself, and how you make things happen. And I think there are enough success stories now in India, and we should learn from them, while at the same time learn from the best practices around the world. So I think I'll stop here, Mugdha. Over to you.
Yeah, so thank you so much to everyone who has contributed to this event. Thanks all the attendees who took out time to attend. Very importantly, thanks to Sri Ramanan for taking time out from his busy schedule and to launch the AIM Prime program. You all know now the program is open. The application form is also open. So please benefit from this program and apply in time. Thank you, Dr. Ashley Stevens, for your talk and taking time out at such an early hour. I also thank the other speakers, Dr. Premnath, Dr. Ayesha Chaudhary, Ms. Ishita Agrawal, and Mr. Anjani Bansal for their contributions. Thanks to the AIM team, including Anish, Manglesh, and the other AIM team members for their contributions. And also thank you to Venture Center team, Shoma, Anmol, Neha, Yashodan, Pinky, Lipika, and Manisha for making this possible. With this, let me quickly remind you about the feedback link. Please do give your feedback. It will be open for 2 more days from today. We need your critical feedback for this event also. Thank you, everyone, and have a good night.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you so much.